When you talk, does your pace power keep your listeners engaged, or does it put them to sleep? Did you know that pace power can really engage your listeners and help them follow your stories? In this session, we're going to talk about pace and how fast or slow you can pace your speech, and also how well you follow your timeline, because I've been given several presentations, several thousands of hours of presentations in my life, and never has the pace been the exact way I planned it. There have always been interruptions. There have always been things that come up. So you want to be able to pace your speech in a way that gives you the maximum impact on your audience, but also how you can make sure you have what you need to make your points. So let's jump on into it, because pace is something that we really don't think about, but it's a really important part of connecting with your audience. So put your email address in there so I can send you your input. Anything you submit, it will come to you in your email. And we're looking at deliver your passion. We're looking at pace, and how you pace your speech. Go ahead and put your name in there, and if you don't want somebody to read your name, use an alias. Here we're looking at pace. And how can you control your pace to engage your audience? Well, pace power is important because it will help you to respond to interruptions and schedule changes and other things and keep your audience engaged. So let's look at pace and pace power. So first of all, you want to vary your speed. Fast, slow. Talk really fast when you're excited. Slow down for important points, more somber ideas. Also, you want to rehearse your pace. What do we mean? Rehearse knowing that you are going faster at times, going slower at times. And then part of pace is you want to pause for impact, because this can make a big difference. But if you haven't practiced your pace or rehearsed your pace, then you may be going too fast, and then you just keep going and droning on, and you don't let your audience stop, and the next thing you know, they're lost. And know your nice to have versus need to have content. There will come that day when you are speaking after the big wig and the president, who gets up there and takes 55 of his allotted 30 minutes, and now you've only got 5 minutes to make your presentation. Know what you can leave out. So what do you need to have in there, and what is nice to have in there? And be clear of that all the way through, because there are times when you need to just let go of something and let it go. And nobody knows what was in your speech except for you. And practice with questions. For this, go to Starbucks, or go, what I tell my students is go to do your Starbucks rehearsal with a friend. Go to Starbucks and tell your friend about the speech that you're going to give. I didn't say give the speech in Starbucks. I said tell your friend about it. That friend, when you say, oh, I'm going to talk about this, I'm going to talk about that, that friend will ask you questions. This is wonderful. How's the drama on that pause? This is wonderful, because when you can be able to answer those questions with your friend, you will also know what kind of questions that your audience may ask. You get better and better at asking questions. If you ever get a chance to watch on YouTube Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, he is a master at answering questions. In fact, I've seen him start with the questions and then give the presentation, because he can build up that crescendo in answering those questions. Because answering a question, you can either look awesome or you can look like an idiot. Sorry. But so it's, if you know some of the tricks when you're doing it, okay? But the main thing is to practice with those questions, so you know how long it takes for someone to ask a question, how long to answer a question, so you can keep your pace moving. And if you have stories and demonstrations, know how long each one is. So if you are in that situation where your 20 or 30 minute speech is now 6 minutes, you know which stories you can fit in and how to make the points with those. Then last, avoid these 4 pace mistakes. Rushing to finish. Just leave it out. And thinking you must tell that other story. And you don't need to tell that other story. Go back up to nice to have versus need to have. And then letting questions derail your presentation. And suddenly your pace is all off, and you're being rushed because these questions are going on too far, too long. And we have another session on your questions, so I'll address that then. And not knowing what to leave out. If it's all the same importance, then nothing is the same importance. So know what you need to leave out when you need to leave it out. So what you want to do is over the next 2 days, go practice these. Keep them in mind. And again, just like with body and voice, you'll be shocked at how much you start to notice about your pace, how fast you talk, and the variety in your pace. When you get excited, you want to talk faster. When you're more sad, you want to talk a little bit slower. Because that is how human beings communicate and how we connect with one another. So keep that in mind as you go forward. And practice all of these, and in 2 days, come back and submit your findings. Yeah, so I think that's it. So let me conclude with, today we talked about, in this session, pace. We talked about having variety in your pace and rehearsing, and pausing for impact, knowing what you need to have versus what's nice to have, and practicing with questions, and knowing how long your stories and your demonstrations take, and avoiding those 4 pace mistakes. This is important because that pace is something that we really don't plan for, but is always a factor. Yes, and I don't like to say always, but it's always a factor. So rehearse your pace, drive your pace, stay in control of your presentation.